Hi, I'm Thana.
At the will reading, my grandfather's lawyer handed me a check for $29 million. My parents? They ripped it in half and set it on fire, right in front of me. "This is what you get for cutting us off," they screamed. But I didn't flinch. I didn't even reach for the ashes. Because what they burned wasn't what they thought. And what they never saw coming was who Grandpa left the real will with. Before we dive in, where are you listening from? Drop a comment below, because this isn't just a family drama. This is what happens when silence ends. So, are you ready to see what they never did? I hadn't worn heels in years, but I put them on that morning, mostly so I could hear the sound of them click against the marble floor of the law office. Something about that sound gave me strength, like I was walking into battle. Not that anyone noticed. Not my mother, who looked right through me like I was the intern. Not my father, who gave me half a nod and nothing else. And definitely not Rami, who lounged in her chair like she owned the place. Legs crossed, sunglasses perched on her head like she was waiting for someone to park her car. Mr. Sheridan, the family lawyer, cleared his throat. "If everyone could sit, we'll begin," he said. "We're here to fulfill the final wishes of Edwin Moraine." His voice was steady, professional, cold even. Per Grandpa's request, all immediate family members were present. I took the last empty chair, always the last, always quiet. The conference room smelled like old leather and lemon polish. I remember that clearly, because I was fixating, using it to keep my hands from trembling. Across the table, Mom twisted her pearl necklace. Dad folded his arms. Rami tapped her nails against the armrest like a metronome of entitlement. Mr. Sheridan opened the folder. "To his daughter, Romelia Marin," he read. Romy straightened. "He leaves the cabin in Jackson Hole in the 1959 Gibson guitar." Romy blinked. "I'm sorry, that's it?" Mr. Sheridan didn't respond. He just continued reading. "To Lawrence and Dana Marin, his son and daughter-in-law, he leaves the heirloom grandfather clock, his vinyl collection, and a charitable donation of $10,000 made in their name." Mom made a noise like she'd just bitten into something sour. "Excuse me," she said. Dad scoffed. "This has to be a joke." Mr. Sheridan pressed on. "And to Thelina Marin," he paused, then looked up, directly at me. "He leaves his entire financial estate, totaling $29,046,000. Silence. You could have heard a feather drop. "What?" my father barked. Mr. Sheridan didn't flinch. It was notarized. He made this change in person 3 months ago. It was deliberate. "That can't be right," Mom said. "She hasn't spoken to us in years. She left this family. She abandoned us." "She doesn't get to walk in here like some martyr and collect a fortune," Dad snapped. Sheridan reached under the table and pulled out a thick brown envelope, sealed in wax. Grandpa's stamp, his old carved horse, still visible. My fingers trembled, but I took it. Inside, a folded check, a handwritten note. "For the one who stayed silent and stayed strong. You were never forgotten. I saw everything." Before I could read it again, my father lunged across the table. He snatched the check from my lap. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't answer, just held it up like it was a counterfeit bill. Mom grabbed the note. "Give that back!" "Stayed silent? You mean ungrateful." She ripped the note in half, then in half again, until the words were unreadable. Romy leaned back, smirking. "Oh, please, you're not the victim here. You always played poor little Thana. Grandpa just pitied you." "That's not true," I began. But Dad had already pulled a lighter from his coat pocket. "Lawrence," Sheridan warned, standing. "I'm not letting her buy her way back in," Dad growled. He flicked the lighter, held the check above it. It curled quickly, smoke rising in thin, delicate spirals. Then it dropped, blackened, into the crystal ashtray in front of him. "Now," he said, voice low and heavy, "we're even." I didn't move, didn't blink. Mom folded her arms. "This is what happens when you betray your family." "She didn't even come to the hospital when Dad was sick," Rami added. I just sat there, watching the smoke trail up like incense at a funeral, watching the last of my grandfather's wishes burn to ash. But here's the thing. What they didn't know? That check wasn't real. What burned was a blank stand-in. I'd found it in Grandpa's study a month before he passed. He warned me they'd try to destroy whatever they couldn't control. We planned for this. The real check, wired directly to a separate trust. Untouchable, untraceable. The actual documents? Already folded in the inner pocket of my coat. So I smiled. Not the kind you wear in family photos. The kind that creeps up slow, like dawn after a long, dark winter. They'd already decided I was the outcast, the one who walked away. Let them keep that version. Let them believe they won. I stood, quietly, pressing the now empty envelope between my hands. And I walked out. No parting words, no dramatic exit. Just the click of my heels against that marble floor, echoing louder than before. Outside, the cold Midwest air hit my face. Still, I didn't flinch. I slid into my car, placed the charred envelope beside me, and opened the brown folder Grandpa had marked. Only open when they burn it. Inside was a new set of documents. On top, one handwritten line. And let them think they won. And that's where it started. By the time I pulled into the bank's private lot, the mid-morning sun had already burned off the mist. I sat in the driver's seat for a while, watching a single leaf tumble from an old oak tree just outside the entrance. There was a stillness to the day, something too calm, considering what I was about to step into. Inside, Mr. Adams greeted me with the same quiet dignity he always carried, the same man who'd stood by my grandfather's side for over a decade. He was already waiting by the elevator. "Miss Marin," he said with a slight nod, gesturing toward the secure floor. "Everything's been prepared, per Mr. Edwin's instructions." We didn't speak much as the elevator hummed downward. I was grateful for the silence. I wasn't in the mood for small talk or sentiment. I was there for something else entirely, proof. When the vault door groaned open, it wasn't the cold air or the hollow echo that made me shiver. It was the weight of what waited behind that steel. Mr. Adams walked over to a long row of numbered drawers and pulled one out with practiced ease. A soft metallic click echoed as the drawer slid forward. "Take your time," he said, stepping back. "I'll be right outside." I sat on the small bench and stared at the box. Just one word in my mind, over and over. Trillium. 2 months ago, Grandpa had handed me a brown envelope at a dusty roadside diner off the I-7. He looked tired then, worn in a way I hadn't seen before. He slid the envelope across the table, his voice low but steady. "Don't open it until after the will's been read, not a second before, and remember, the key is the word trillium. You'll know when." I'd repeated that word every night since, like a mantra, like armor. Now, as I undid the latch on the drawer, I whispered it again under my breath. Trillium. Inside were 3 things: a folded check, a flash drive in a velvet pouch, and a legal file tied with a red ribbon. I lifted the check first. My breath caught. It was real. Undeniably real. 29,000,000. Signed in Grandpa's signature, the same loopy scrawl I'd seen on every birthday card growing up. The paper was thick, heavier than expected. It carried weight, not just in dollars, but in meaning. Next, I opened the legal file. It contained 2 old wills, one from 8 years ago, another from 3. In both of them, my parents and Rami had been the primary beneficiaries. Grandpa's handwriting crowded the margins. This was Dana's suggestion. Felt off. Lawrence insisted again. Said Thana wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. I swallowed hard. Then came the final pages. No scribbles, no edits. Just clean, typed certainty. Everything was mine. I sat back against the bench. My chest wasn't tight from sadness. It was something else. Relief. Then came the flash drive. I waited until I was back in my car before I slid it into my laptop. The screen flickered. Then Grandpa's face appeared. Filmed in what looked like his den, framed by worn bookshelves and that old dusty lamp I used to hide under as a kid. "If you're watching this," he began, "then I'm gone." His smile was soft, sad, but not weak. "I wish I could be there when they realized they didn't win." He leaned forward slightly. "I know what they did to you. I saw more than I let on. The way they froze you out, drained your college fund, turned your bedroom into storage while you were still in school." He exhaled. "I knew about the lies, how they said you were difficult, just because you didn't fall in line." I blinked fast, my hands trembling on the keyboard. "I should have stopped it sooner," he said, his voice cracking. "I thought maybe time would fix it, but I was wrong." He leaned even closer, and his eyes, though tired, locked onto mine through the screen. "You were the only one who never asked for anything, but gave more than anyone. You stayed silent. You endured. That was never weakness, Thana. That was strength. You loved them without strings." He paused. "This is yours now. Let them throw tantrums. Let them scramble. Stay calm. The law is already on your side." His voice softened again. "You'll know when to speak, but sometimes silence is the sharpest blade." Then the screen went black. I sat there in the car, just still. The check, the file, the video. None of it gave me back the birthdays spent alone. None of it rewound the night I stood outside their house, watching Christmas lights blink behind windows that never once opened for me. Later that night, Back in my rental apartment, I placed the charred envelope, the one they thought held the real check, on my kitchen table. I opened a drawer and pulled out an old scarf Grandpa gave me when I was 10. It still smelled faintly of cedar. I wrapped the real check inside it and slid it into the fireproof safe in the back of my closet, alongside the USB and the legal documents. Then I sat at my small desk and opened a folder I hadn't touched in years. College acceptance letters I never replied to. Business sketches and logos from when I still believed I could dream. Ideas scratched on napkins and scraps. Back when I thought I was allowed to exist fully, not just tolerated. One memory slipped in like a splinter. Christmas break, sophomore year. I came home early to surprise them, only to find my room stripped bare. My bed gone, desk gone, replaced by beanbags and oversized art prints. Romy's voice echoed down the hallway. "Isn't it cute? It's my reading nook now." I didn't argue, I just packed. But I remember gripping the steering wheel that night, whispering to myself, just get through it. And I did. Now, holding the real folder, the one no one else knew existed, I whispered something else. I'm not that girl anymore. I backed up Grandpa's video to a private cloud, printed extra copies of the legal documents, stored everything in the fireproof case I'd bought that morning. Then I made tea, sat by the window, watched the world outside not change at all. And I smiled anyway. They thought they'd won. They had no idea. The game had just begun. I didn't expect to sleep soundly after what I uncovered at the bank, but somehow the past 2 nights had passed with a strange clarity. No tossing, no racing thoughts, no looping arguments playing in my head. For once, the silence in my apartment didn't feel like absence. It felt like peace. So when my phone buzzed at 6:13 a.m., it startled me, sharp, out of place. I reached for it, still cocooned in the old quilt Grandpa gave me when I left for college. No caller ID, just unknown. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my chest whispered, "Answer it." "Hello?" I said, my voice still raspy from sleep. "Thana." Her voice was too soft, too warm. "Hey, it's Romy." I didn't say anything, not right away. She filled the silence. "I know it's early, I was hoping we could talk. Just us. No lawyers, no drama." Still, I said nothing. "I thought maybe we could grab coffee like we used to. Just talk. You pick the place." The last time Romy asked to just talk, I ended up being blamed for ruining Mom's retirement dinner because I didn't laugh at her husband's joke about my useless degree. And yet I heard myself say 11, Cornerstone Cafe. She agreed too fast, too easily. We hung up. I deleted her number again, just in case. I didn't do much the next few hours. Let a pot of tea go cold, read over Grandpa's financial notes from the vault, walked around my apartment more than once, pretending I had something to do, some corner to check, some item to straighten. But I didn't want to sit with what I knew Romy was coming to say. By the time I reached the cafe, the winter light had that gray, dull glow. Everything looked a little tired. She was already there, tucked in the back corner, the same table we used to hog during finals week. A quiet spot, far from the heater. I remembered how she always said it helped her focus. She stood when she saw me, almost like she was about to hug me, then seemed to think better of it. I slid into the seat opposite her. No greeting, no small talk. "It's been too long," she said, stirring a cup of something that looked barely touched. She smiled, the kind that tried too hard. "I keep thinking about those late nights here. You, with your highlighters and flashcards. Me, stress-eating banana bread, like it was my lifeline." I nodded once, small. "You used to steal my tea when you ran out of money." She laughed, a little too loud, then dialed it back. "Yeah, you always planned ahead. You were like 40 at 21, in a good way." Silence. Then, as if on cue, she pivoted. "Mom hasn't been the same since the will reading," she said softly. "She's not eating. Dad barely speaks. They feel like you just disappeared on them." I raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. Her smile faltered. "I get it. You've always felt like the outsider. But cutting us off like this, it's cruel, Thana." I sipped my chamomile. Let the silence work. "I mean, even Grandpa. Sometimes he said you held things too tightly, that you were distant." I looked at her carefully. "Did he say that to you, or did someone else say it about me?" Her jaw tensed. Just a flicker, but I caught it. "I'm just saying, no one wants the family to fall apart." I leaned back, watching her try to spin a web that didn't hold. Then she dropped it. "That check, the one you let Dad burn, was it real?" There it was. Her voice cracked slightly. Not much, but enough to betray what she came here for. "Because if it was, That's a lot of money to let just burn. I set my mug down gently. It was just a piece of paper. She blinked. What? It's gone now. This silence wasn't like before. It bristled, sharp, uncomfortable. Her smile vanished. Whatever Grandpa left you, whatever game this is, don't make it worse than it has to be. This family has already lost so much. I stood slowly, slipped on my coat. Then let's not lose more. Wait, her voice rose, not loud, but urgent. You know Mom's thinking about contesting the will. I paused, turned to face her. She's welcome to try. No anger, just truth. Romy's mouth opened, then closed. I walked out. The wind outside had picked up, cold, sharp. It cut through my coat like knives. But I didn't rush. Each step felt deliberate, measured, like I was breaking out of a rhythm I'd been stuck in for years. When I got back to my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I stood in the kitchen, peeled off my coat, sweater still warm from the cafe heater and confrontation. I was just reaching for the tea kettle when I noticed it. Something taped to the outside of my front door, just below the peephole. It wasn't a flyer, it was centered too neatly. Plain, white, unmarked. I opened the door and gently peeled it off. No name, no return address, no stamp. Just a plain white envelope, sealed. The handwriting on the front was tight, slanted, a little shaky, like the pen dragged across the paper. Something about it tugged at the edge of a memory. Not full, just a feeling, like trying to remember a scent from childhood. I closed the door, sat at the kitchen table, stared at it. Then I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no signature. Just a message. What they burned wasn't the real check. Don't speak. Just move wisely. Look in box array at the security firm. You'll understand everything. That was it. I read it again, then again. By the 5th time, I still hadn't moved. Not fear, recognition. Whoever sent this knew what had happened. And whoever they weren't trying to hurt me. They were trying to help me. I folded the note carefully, slid it under a cookbook like hiding it would make it more real. Then I opened the drawer next to the stove. There it was, my grandfather's brass key. He gave it to me on my 18th birthday, wrapped in a handkerchief. He'd said only one thing when he handed it over. You'll need this someday, when you're ready to claim yourself. At the time, I thought it was one of those cryptic, sentimental things old men say. I never asked what it opened. I just kept it. Now it sat in the palm of my hand. Heavy, cold, real. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, lights off. The key and the letter on the table. The words echoing in my head like someone had whispered them behind my ear. By morning, gray and early, I made the call. Langford Vault and Estate, said the receptionist, crisp, polite. Hi, I said. I'm Thealina Marin. I'm calling to follow up on a residual item tied to my grandfather's estate. I believe it's in a secured box. Do you have the box number? Box number 8, and I have the original key. A pause, typing. That box is listed under your name, Miss Marin. We can schedule an appointment for this afternoon. Please bring 2 forms of ID and the key. I'll be there at 2. The rest of the morning passed in silence. I didn't eat, didn't listen to music, didn't speak. At 1:30, I slipped the brass key into my coat pocket, locked the apartment, and drove. The building sat tucked off a quiet street. Discreet, trees lining the sidewalk, a buzzer at the door. Inside, the scent of cedar and professionalism hit me like memory. The woman at the desk checked my ID, examined the key, and led me to a paneled room. 1 table, 1 chair, 1 wall of safe deposit boxes. She unlocked box 8, then left me alone. I sat. Inside were 3 items. The first, a cashier's check for $29 million made out to me. My breath caught, not from greed, from weight, from truth. The second, an envelope sealed in red wax. Grandpa's handwriting on the front read, "Only if they burn the first one." And the third was something I never expected. I held the red wax envelope in my hands for a long time before opening it. It felt sacred, like it had been waiting for this exact moment. Inside was a short letter, typewritten, with only 1 sentence handwritten at the bottom in Grandpa's unmistakable slanted script. The letter read, "If you're reading this, then they've shown you who they really are. The money was never the real gift. The real gift is knowing who to trust when the fire starts. And keep your own counsel, and never let them make you small again." And then the handwritten line, "They can take the ash, you keep the fire." No tears came, but my chest felt tight. Tight in the way a door feels just before it finally gives way after years of being sealed shut. I folded the letter slowly, carefully, and placed it back in the envelope. Then I picked up the third item in the box. It was a smaller envelope, cream-colored, thinner, and inside it was a key card. Simple, silver-etched. No logo, just a number. On the back, written in Grandpa's script, Box Array, Suite 4, lower level. Ask no questions. Say nothing. I repacked everything, secured the box, and returned the key to the front desk. The woman didn't blink when I handed it over, just nodded. On the drive home, I didn't turn on the radio. I let the silence keep me company. Back at my apartment, I placed the envelope and the check in my safe, closed it, twisted the dial with steady hands. Then I stood in front of the mirror. The same face stared back. But something beneath the skin had shifted. Not fear, not grief. Something colder, sharper. Clarity. Later that evening, just as I was sitting down with a bowl of soup I wasn't even hungry for, I heard it. A rustle. Faint. Paper. I stood, walked to the door. Another envelope. This one tucked beneath the doormat. No name, no return address. No tape, just wait. I picked it up. It was heavier than the first. Thicker. Inside, a second message. No preamble, no signature. Just words that stopped my breath. They didn't just burn your check. They're rewriting the record. Look at Box Array. You'll understand. You're not dead yet, but they want you to be. My hands froze. My breath lodged somewhere between disbelief and something worse. Recognition. This wasn't just about inheritance. This wasn't about being left out of the family circle. They were trying to erase me, literally. I went to my drawer, pulled out the small velvet pouch from the vault. Inside it, the flash drive, still cold, still unread. I plugged it in. A single file. Watch Me First, MP4. I clicked. The screen flickered to life, and there he was, Grandpa. Not in his den this time, but in the sunroom. Late afternoon light cast long shadows. A red cardinal perched on the sill behind him. He looked tired, yes, but also anchored, present. If you're watching this, Thelina, he said, then they've gone too far. My throat tightened. You were always the one who stood apart, not because you wanted to, but because they wouldn't let you in. He looked down for a moment, then back up. The company, the trust, the legacy, it was always meant for you. He took a slow breath. But I knew they'd try to take it, and when they couldn't, they'd come for you. His voice hardened. So I moved the final piece somewhere they'd never look, someone they'd never suspect. He paused. There's a man, Jasper Bell, lives off Route 17, near the old warehouse. I blinked. You'll find what you need there. The screen went dark. And just like that, everything inside me reorganized. They weren't just cutting me out of the story. They were rewriting it, without me. I stood and opened my safe again, pulled out every document, every backup. I stared at the birth certificate, the notarized letters, the check, then at the red wax letter. I wasn't just inheriting a fortune. I was inheriting a war, and I needed to be ready. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid. I was past afraid. I was focused. By dawn, I was packed, dressed in jeans and boots, no makeup, hair in a knot. I left the city before the sun fully rose, the early light slashing across the road in streaks of silver and ash. The GPS led me 40 minutes outside Charleston, past strip malls and old gas stations, out into the pine woods. And then, nothing. No houses, no signs, just trees and cracked road. Until it appeared. A chain-link fence, sagging slightly. Behind it, 3 squat metal storage units sat like tired secrets. A dented sign leaned at an angle. M. Carolyn Co. Emergency Holdings. I parked beside a patch of gravel and weeds. Nothing moved, just cicadas humming, a crow cawing in the distance. The GPS flashed green. Unit 19B, 36 feet ahead. I stepped out of the car and walked up to the unit. The padlock squealed when I twisted the key from the vault envelope. Dust rained down as I lifted the metal door. Light from a cracked skylight spilled in. I stood in the doorway, taking in the scene. Boxes. Metal shelves. A rolled-up rug. A few broken office chairs. And in the center, deliberate, waiting, sat a fireproof briefcase. Black, heavy-duty. Taped to the top with brittle yellowing tape was a note in Grandpa's handwriting. If they ever burn you, open this. I stepped inside, pulled the case close, sat down on an overturned crate. My fingers trembled as I unlatched the locks. Inside? A tape recorder. A folder. A key wrapped in wax paper. I picked up the recorder first. The label was simple. For her ears only. I pressed play. Grandpa's voice came through, thin and fragile now. They told me they'd put me in a home if I changed the will, he said. Your aunt even brought papers. Said they were court-reviewed. But I knew. He coughed. They don't just want to cut you out, Thelina. They want your silence. A pause. But you're the legacy they're afraid of. The tape ended. I opened the folder next. Inside was my real birth certificate, not the revised one with my stepfather's name. This one was clean. Thelina Maurice Carroll. Next came the letters, 12 of them, most never sent. One dated a week before his final will, another written 2 days, after the state filed my death certificate. I kept going. A draft of a will, signed and notarized, naming me as sole heir and majority stakeholder in the Carroll Family Trust. The date? After the state declared me dead. They knew I was alive, and they filed it anyway. Underneath the will, a deed to the Charleston estate. Signed. Transferred. To me. Not my father, not Romy. Me. My breath caught. This wasn't just inheritance. This was proof. They hadn't just tried to disown me. They'd tried to bury me. And now? Now I had everything I needed to dig myself out and burn their lies to the ground. I sat still for a moment, my hands resting on top of the folder, the plastic binder, the USB from the vault. The dusty light filtering through the cracked skylight made everything look like it had already aged, like this moment had been waiting for me for a long time. This wasn't just a stash of old records. It was a vault of truth. I pulled out my phone, fingers steady despite the weight of what I now held. I opened the camera app and began documenting. Every page, every signature, every letter. I snapped photos one by one, careful to keep them crisp, focused, time-stamped. Then I opened my encrypted cloud backup app, one I downloaded weeks ago when Grandpa first gave me the original envelope. I'd prepared, even if I didn't know exactly for what. I uploaded everything. Legal documents? Tagged. Trust transfers? Tagged. Birth certificate? Tagged. Deed? Tagged. I labeled them clearly. Will final true. Trust. Carroll full control. Birth cert. Original. Identity fraud. Proof. Deed Carroll Mropshe. Redundancy was protection. I uploaded copies to 3 separate encrypted drives, each with different access points, all under aliases. Then I pulled out the prepaid phone I'd picked up at a gas station outside Charleston. I'd bought it under a fake name, just in case. Now I needed it. I dialed the number I had scrawled onto the back of my motel receipt. Probate and Asset Law, Charleston office. A woman answered on the second ring, her voice clipped, but calm. Charleston Probate and Asset Law, this is Brenda. I need to speak to someone, I said, my voice level, about a will contest and identity fraud. Urgent, involving the Carroll family estate. There was a pause. Do you have documentation? I do. I'd prefer to meet in person. She didn't hesitate. Earliest available is this afternoon, 2:00 p.m. Use the 6th Street entrance. Ask for Sylvia Orton. I'll be there. I ended the call. Then I looked down at the case in my lap, at everything it held. They wanted to erase me. From memory, from record, from existence. But I was still here, and now I had proof. When I stepped outside the storage unit, the late morning sun had turned brutal. It felt too bright, too loud. I squinted, shielding my eyes with one hand as I double-checked the latch, locked the unit, and headed for the car. Just as I opened the door, my burner phone buzzed. Voicemail. I froze, played it on speaker. It was Romy. Her voice sounded cracked, like it had been scrubbed raw by crying. If you're alive, I didn't know they were going to take it that far. She sniffled. I didn't know about the death form. I swear, it wasn't me. I just signed where they told me. I didn't read it. I didn't know what it was. Please believe me. Then silence, and a sharp breath before the click. I stood there with the phone in my hand, staring at the gravel like it had answers. Then I laughed. Quiet, bitter, but sharp. Thanks for the confession, sis. I got in the car, set the GPS for the law office one more time, tucked the burner into my bag. They wanted me dead. Forgotten. Erased. But I was alive. And I had everything I needed to make sure they couldn't lie about that again. I didn't go straight downtown. Instead, I pulled off the highway and found a diner near the overpass. It was nearly empty, just a trucker with a half-eaten plate of pancakes and a young woman on her laptop nursing an iced coffee. I ordered nothing but hot black coffee and sat at a booth by the window. Then I opened my laptop, connected to the encrypted Wi-Fi I'd set up the night before, and uploaded the backups again. One more drive. One more lock. One more level of protection. It was only then, only after the last file upload confirmation flashed on the screen, that I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for hours. At 1:15 p.m., the burner buzzed. Ms. Orton will see you at 2:00 p.m. Use 6th Street entrance. Ask for Rita. I left a 20 under my mug, untouched. The coffee was cold. Didn't matter. I drove through Charleston, past the courthouse I used to walk by as a teenager, and wonder what justice really looked like. It had always felt too large, too imposing, too far from someone like me. Today, I was going to find out what it looked like up close. The Mike Fulton and Wesley building didn't scream power, it whispered it. Frosted glass doors, a single plaque, no logos, no brass finishes. I stepped inside, checked my reflection in the elevator wall. I looked calm, like someone who wasn't just trying to win, but someone who was already done losing. The receptionist's desk was minimalist, just a phone, a screen, a pen. She looked up. Name? Thana Marin. I have a 2:00 appointment with Sylvia Orton. She blinked, just once. I caught it. Her fingers hesitated on the keyboard, then she recovered. Of course, please have a seat. I didn't. I stood. A minute later, a door opened. She looked exactly like I expected her to. Elegant. Silver hair. Tailored black suit. No jewelry. No pretense. Sylvia Orton, she said, her voice low and firm. You must be Thana. It wasn't a question. It was a knowing. I nodded. Followed her down the hallway into a private meeting room. Simple, shielded, soundproof. She motioned to the table. What do you have? I placed the fireproof case down gently, opened it, spread out the files. She didn't flinch as she examined them, just nodded occasionally, her expression unreadable. But when she unfolded the letter labeled in Grandpa's shaky handwriting, if they ever burn you, open this. Something shifted in her eyes. She softened, for just a breath. Then she slid open a drawer in the desk, pulled out a yellow legal pad, clicked her pen once, and said, You're not going to like this next part. I looked at her, voice steady. I haven't liked much of any part so far. She half smiled. Fair. She placed another folder on the table, this one stamped and sealed. This, she said, was filed 2 months before your grandfather's death. He came to us in secret, quietly, had us notarize a witness affidavit and a personal statement. She slid the envelope across the table toward me. He named you sole heir to all liquid assets, stocks, bonds, and cash reserves. Not the land, that's trust territory. But from what you've shown me, you've got that part covered. I opened the envelope. Inside, his words. Typewritten. Clear. Get some... I, Edwin Bernard Marin, being of sound mind and body, hereby affirm that I have revised my estate to reflect my granddaughter, Thelina Marin, as the rightful and sole heir of all financial holdings not tied to land. I do so freely, with full knowledge of any existing family disputes, and without coercion. Below that, 2 notary signatures. One of them? Edna Monroe, a name I hadn't heard since childhood. She used to run Sunday school classes at the church down the street. Grandpa trusted her. And she'd signed this. I stared at the document. My throat was tight, not with nerves. With vindication. This is real, I whispered. Sylvia nodded. It's gold. She looked up at me. Now, she said, closing her file and pulling another one from her briefcase. We prepare to light a fire they can't put out. Sylvia laid the new folder flat on the table and opened it with deliberate calm. Her pen tapped once against her legal pad before she spoke again. We'll file a probate challenge, she said. Expedited. Based on concealed evidence and falsified filings. And we'll ask for a protective order for your records, your trust, and, most importantly, your identity. I nodded. The room felt warm suddenly, despite the minimalist chill. Maybe it was adrenaline. Or maybe it was just what happens when someone finally believes you. She added, but one thing is critical, Thana. Don't contact them. I blinked. At all? Let them keep posting. Let them smile on camera. Let them call you unstable in public, she said. Every word they say right now, it's a gift. Let them hand us the noose. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, swiped to a screenshot. My mother, standing in front of the estate sign, arm in arm with Romy. The caption, first in line, always have been. Sylvia took one look and nodded. Perfect. I've already scheduled a photographer, I said. We'll post a photo of me at the same spot, same angle, same backdrop. Just enough time for it to sink in before the notice arrives. She smiled, barely. Let it bleed slowly. I gathered my files and stood. We shook hands. Hers was firm and dry, professional, but there was a thread of steel underneath it. As I stepped back into the hallway, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text. It was a voice message. Romy again. Her voice trembled, thin and frayed like fabric pulled too tight. "If you're alive," she started. Then silence. Then a breath. I didn't know they were going to take it that far. I didn't know about the death form, I swear. A pause. "Please don't shut me out. I didn't sign anything. It was all Dad. Please." I listened to it twice. Then I pressed save. Not for sentiment, for evidence. Outside, the Charleston air was cool, heavy with spring, the kind that feels like everything is blooming and dying all at once. I stood at the edge of the courthouse steps, files in hand, and just breathed. One long inhale, one long exhale. Then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I smiled, not for cruelty, not for pride, just for peace. Thanks for the confession, sis. The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. Not because I was nervous. That part burned off the night they laughed about me online, the night they set fire to the only real love I'd ever known, and posted it like a badge of honor. No, I wasn't nervous. I was done. Done waiting. Done mourning. Done watching my life be rewritten by people who only knew how to perform family when a camera was on. I sat up at the edge of the bed, staring at the glow of my laptop. Every document was backed up 3 times over, stored on encrypted drives, duplicated on paper and digital. My name, my real name, was written in ink too deep to scrub out. At 7:45 a.m. I dressed. Black slacks, a gray blouse, no makeup, just concealer to cover the exhaustion. I tied my hair back into a neat knot. Clean. Focused. Sylvia picked me up at 8:15. Her car was spotless. Quiet. We said nothing for most of the drive. But just before we reached the courthouse, she turned to me. "Last chance to back out?" I met her eyes. "They've earned every word I'm about to say." She nodded once. Good. The marble floors of the Charleston County Probate Court echoed beneath my shoes. Signs directed us toward Hearing Room 2B. It was quiet inside, that kind of suffocating quiet that builds before a storm. My parents were already there. My father wore a navy blazer that hadn't been pressed properly. My mother was in pearls. Again. But this time, they sat wrong on her collarbone, like they knew they didn't belong there. They didn't look at me. Didn't speak. Their lawyer, a young man in a too skinny tie, was sprawled back in his chair like he'd already won. I didn't even glance at him. Judge Kinley entered. Stern, older, known for being no-nonsense. He didn't smile, didn't even make eye contact at first. "The court is now in session to finalize the probate on the estate of Mr. Edwin Bernard Marin," he said, "which has been brought into dispute. Formalities, names, dates." Then Sylvia stood. She didn't rush. She didn't raise her voice. She spoke like someone who'd spent decades in rooms where silence was the sharpest tool on the shelf. "We are here today to submit a revised will, executed under legal counsel, dated 5 months after the currently contested document. This revision names my client, Ms. Thelina Marin, as the sole heir to all liquid assets not tied to the estate's physical land." My parents' lawyer stood up, already smirking. "Your Honor, the decedent's most recent filed will clearly states all major property and holdings are to be distributed among my clients. This," he gestured towards Sylvia, "is a manufactured attempt by an estranged family member to reclaim what she willingly walked away from." Kinley raised a hand. "You'll have your turn, Mr. Delacroix." Sylvia continued as if the interruption didn't happen. "In addition to the revised will, we submit notarized witness affidavits, 2 audio-visual recordings made by Mr. Marin during his final weeks, and documentary evidence of identity tampering, including, but not limited to, a fraudulent death certificate filed against Ms. Marin without her knowledge or consent." There was a pause. My mother made a strangled sound, half cough, half denial. Dad didn't say anything, but his jaw clenched. Romy notably wasn't there. Then Sylvia connected her tablet to the courtroom's screen. The lights dimmed, and there he was, Grandpa, in a hospice bed, oxygen tubing across his face, eyes sunken. But his voice? His voice was clear. "If they're in court again, it means they're doing what I feared. He looked directly into the camera. No confusion, no hesitation. If you're watching this, sweetheart, it's because I knew they'd try to erase you, but you were never forgettable. My mother gasped. Grandpa kept speaking. They made me sign a version of the will I didn't want. Pressured me. Told me you were just trying to take what wasn't yours. I was weak, but I wasn't gone. I changed it back, quietly. Made sure someone honest saw me sign it. He coughed, wheezed. They'll pretend it's about fairness, but you and I both know it's about shame. And then quieter. I was never ashamed of you. I was ashamed of letting them win. The screen went dark. The room held its breath. Delacroix scrambled. That video is hearsay. Sylvia didn't even blink. Your Honor, we're also submitting text messages from Romy Moraine sent to the deceased, including statements urging him to stick to the script or things get messy fast. Gasps, papers shuffled, but Kinley didn't react. He simply sat back in his chair and stared at my parents. Then he spoke slowly. I've seen greed, he said. I've seen cruelty, but rarely have I seen both, this loud and this foolish. He turned to them. You attempted to mislead this court. You concealed critical documentation. You engaged in willful destruction of evidence. He looked at me. Ms. Marin is affirmed as the sole legal heir to the liquid estate. The transfer will proceed under court supervision. I exhaled. But he wasn't done. To the respondents, due to probable elder coercion and tampering of legal records, I am issuing a freeze on your current assets, pending further investigation. Dad stood as if to argue. Kinley didn't even acknowledge him. Court is adjourned. Outside, the spring breeze felt different. Lighter, warmer, like something thick had peeled off my back. I stood alone on the courthouse steps when a reporter stepped forward. Ms. Marin, she said, do you have a statement? Anything you'd like to say to your family after everything? I looked at her mic, then at the sky, then straight into the camera. They already said it all, I said, calm and true, when they set fire to the only love that ever saw me. And I walked away. Not in anger. In peace. That afternoon, I went home, kicked off my shoes, and stood still in the center of my apartment like I didn't know what to do with the quiet. The walls looked the same. The light through the window hadn't changed, but I had. For the first time in years, I wasn't wondering if I had a right to be here. I had won. Legally, at least. Emotionally? That part was murkier. I brewed a cup of tea, something herbal and grounding, and sat cross-legged on the floor beside the safe. I didn't open it. I just leaned against it, letting the weight of everything settle. But the peace didn't last long. At 6:14 p.m., there was a soft knock at my door. Not a delivery, not my neighbor. It was precise. Measured. I stood, heart suddenly alert, and peeked through the peephole. No one. But on the ground, another envelope. No return address. No tape. Just white, perfectly centered beneath the threshold. I opened the door slowly, grabbed it, and shut it again, locking every bolt behind me. The envelope was thicker than the others, still warm from the sun. Inside? Just one thing. A single tight note typed in courier font on plain paper. And do not forget Charleston Historical Archive. Use your birth name. What they buried is still buried there, but not for long. Move fast. There was no signature, no instructions, just a warning disguised as a suggestion. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat, tucked the note inside my wallet, and was out the door within minutes. The Charleston Historical Archive sat at the edge of the old district, tucked between a long, closed bookshop and a crumbling post office. Inside, it smelled like aged paper and lemon wax. A young woman with thick glasses and a tight bun sat behind the reception desk, typing. "Can I help you?" she asked without looking up. "I'm looking for land records," I said. "Charleston property, under the name Thelena Maurice Carroll." She paused. Her fingers stopped. Then she looked up, slowly. "Could you spell that?" I did. She typed again, frowned, then turned her screen toward me. What I saw made my knees weaken. Then status deceased. Date of death, 2 weeks ago. Cause, pedestrian collision. Confirmed, dental records. I stared. Froze. The world blurred around the edges. "That's not me," I managed. She leaned in. "Well, this is a certified copy. That means it was pushed through the registrar's office. This is official." "But I'm standing right here," I whispered. "It happens sometimes," she said gently. "Usually clerical, or someone with authority, hospital, executor, files it incorrectly." I shook my head. No, this was intentional." She handed me a sticky note. "You can challenge it. Go to the Charleston Records office. Bring your ID, social security number, anything you have. I nodded, lips tight. Thank you. I stepped out into the fading daylight like I'd been skinned alive. The city looked the same, but I felt erased. People passed, cars moved, dogs barked behind gates. I don't remember any of it. I only remember standing in front of the records office counter, holding out my ID, my SSN, my proof of existence, to a clerk with a calm voice and a slightly worried frown. She typed, frowned harder. That's strange, she said. What? Your social security number is flagged as inactive. My mouth went dry. That only happens when someone dies, I said flatly. She nodded. Exactly. I opened my phone, logged into my bank app. Error. Account not found. I tried my credit card app.
Suspended contact issuer.
My knees buckled slightly. I gripped the edge of the counter. Ma'am, the clerk said gently, would you like me to call someone? I shook my head. No, I just need a minute. She nodded and stepped away. I stared out the window, watching people stroll by, laughing, carrying iced coffees, children kicking rocks on the sidewalk. And me? I was a ghost. A memory walking on legs. A name that no longer legally existed. And I realized something that chilled me to the core. This had been planned. Not just by chance, not a glitch. This was a coordinated effort. Someone went through the official steps to kill me, on paper. A memory flashed. Me, sitting beside Grandpa after his third stroke, his voice slow but sharp. If they can't control you, sweetheart, they'll wipe you off the map. That's what power does when it's scared. It erases. He hadn't been dramatic. He'd been right. I left the records office without another word. Walking fast, too fast, like my shadow might detach and fall behind. I didn't go home. Didn't feel safe. Instead, I ducked into a corner cafe, bought a small black coffee, and used their public Wi-Fi to search cheap Motel Charleston. I found one. Paid cash. Booked under the fake last name I'd used to buy the burner phone. The woman at the desk didn't even look up as she slid the key card across the counter. The room was small, smelled like mildew and faint cigarette smoke. The AC rattled like it had a cold, but it locked. It was quiet. It would do. I dropped my bag, sat on the edge of the bed, and pulled out the USB from box 8, the one labeled only with my initials. I plugged it into my laptop. One folder, one file, and watch by Smee, first MP4. Again. I clicked. And there he was, Grandpa. But not in the den. Not in the sunroom. This time, he was sitting in the garden, a bird feeder swinging behind him. Spring sunlight haloing his white hair. If you're seeing this, Thelina, he said, they've done it. They've buried you. He looked straight at the camera, like he could see me. You were always the one who stood apart, not because you wanted to, because they wouldn't let you in. His voice cracked. But the company, the legacy, the truth, it was always yours. He leaned forward. They're not after the money. They're after the signature, the one that proves who owns the company, the real power. He paused. There's a man, Jasper Bell, off Route 17, near the old warehouse. He has the last piece. The screen flickered, then went black. I sat in the glow of the laptop screen, breathing slowly, not from panic, from clarity. They buried me, but Grandpa planted something in the dirt. I stood, looked at myself in the cracked mirror above the sink. Hollow eyes, no makeup, no performative strength. But something inside me, something buried deep, had snapped into place. I whispered it out loud. I'm not done. I grabbed my backpack, tucked the drive away, locked the motel room behind me, and made a plan. It was time to resurrect myself. I left the motel before the sun rose fully, the sky still bruised with early light. The air clung thick to my skin, coastal humidity pressing against every inch of me. But I didn't roll the windows up. I needed the wind, the sound, the reminder that I was alive, that I existed. The GPS took me 42 minutes out of Charleston, past shuttered bait shops and crumbling barns, past the abandoned barbecue stand where Grandpa once bought me root beer on a dare, past the tree line where my mother used to say nothing good ever grows. And then I saw it. The old warehouse. A rusted chain-link fence sagged along the property's edge. Faded signage barely clung to the front gate. Carroll and Comu, Emergency Holdings. My family name. Still standing. Barely. I parked in the gravel and weeds. The GPS said 36 feet ahead, Unit 19B. I got out of the car. Every step felt like walking toward a ghost. The air was still. Too still. No birds, no wind, just the groan of the gravel beneath my boots and the faint hum of something unseen. Unit 19B looked like every other. Dented, scuffed, gray-blue paint flaking off the corners. But taped to the door was a familiar strip of yellowed paper. Grandpa's handwriting. If they ever burn you, open this. The lock squeaked as I turned the key I'd taken from the USB box. The door rolled up slowly, dust falling like ash. Inside was chaos and precision. Stacked boxes, metal filing cabinets, a dusty rug rolled and tied with twine, office chairs piled carelessly in the back. But right in the center, dead center, was a black fireproof briefcase, the kind that could survive flood, fire, and time. I sat on an overturned crate, pulled the case toward me, clicked open the latches. Inside, a small cassette recorder, a manila folder, a keycard wrapped in wax paper, and a letter sealed in plastic. The recorder had one label, for her ears only. I pressed play. Grandpa's voice filled the space, a little thinner, a little slower, but unshaken. They told me they'd put me in a home if I changed the will, he said. Your aunt showed up with court papers. Said it was for my own good. He chuckled softly, bitter. But I knew what they were doing, so I left you something they couldn't touch, something they couldn't even see. A pause. They don't just want to cut you out, Thelina. They want your silence. They want your legacy to rot in a drawer somewhere. But you... The tape clicked once. You're the legacy they're afraid of. The tape ended with static. I picked up the manila folder. Inside, my original birth certificate. Not the edited one with my stepfather's name. This one was clean. And Thelina Maurice Carroll. My name, full, whole, undiluted. Next, a bundle of letters. 10, maybe 12. All from Grandpa. Most never mailed. A few dated after the date listed on the death certificate they'd filed under my name. One letter, dated 3 days after that document was pushed through the registrar's office, read, "If they're already trying to bury you, then you were always the one they feared." Another, "And they won't stop at inheritance. They'll come for your name. Don't let them." I kept going. A copy of a notarized will revision. This one signed and dated after the alleged death filing. Naming me sole executor, majority stakeholder, legal authority over the Carroll Family Trust. Dated 3 weeks after they said I was legally dead. I swallowed hard. Beneath that was a plastic binder. A land deed. Signed over. To me. The Charleston property. The foundation of their empire. Not Dad. Not Rami. Not the trust. Me. I had the deed. The legal transfer. The dates. The truth. This wasn't just about theft. This was about warfare. They wanted me erased so they could rebuild everything without me in the story. Without me in the records, without me as witness. But they'd failed to destroy the one thing they never understood how to fight. Proof. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of every page, every document. Then I used my encrypted app to scan and upload every file. Again, cloud backup, alternate drives, firewall duplicates. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. I was building the attack. Then I opened my notebook, scribbled one name across the top of the next page. And Sylvia Orton. And underneath? And strategy. Will revision timeline. Identity fraud documentation. Death certificate falsification. Ownership of Charleston land. Beneficiary confirmation. Recording from Grandpa. Witness affidavit. Edna Monroe. Rami's voicemails. Public post screenshot. Mom plus Romy. Intentional coercion claim. I closed the notebook and slipped the documents into a weatherproof bag, then locked the briefcase and returned it to the storage unit, just in case. I kept digital copies, my birth certificate, the deed, and the key card with me. Back at the motel, I used my backup laptop to pull everything together, labeled, sorted, compressed, uploaded to encrypted email, ready to send at a moment's notice. At 12:14 p.m., I dialed Sylvia's private line. She picked up on the second ring. Orton. It's Thana. I'm listening. I have proof. Everything. Land, identity, trust, witness testimony. I'm ready. Silence. Then. Come in at 3:30. 6th Street entrance. Ask for Rita. I didn't hesitate. I changed into clean clothes, wiped down the motel room, left the burner phone behind, and took my backup with dual encryption instead. At 3:26 p.m., I walked into Fulton and Wesley through the back entrance. The receptionist didn't ask my name this time. She just pointed toward the door at the end of the hall. Sylvia met me there, ushered me in. We didn't waste time with pleasantries. I laid out everything. The scanned deed, the will, the fraudulent death certificate, the birth certificate, the recording. She went silent. Page by page, she read, clicked, scanned, annotated. Then she looked up. Do you know what you have here? I nodded. Leverage. She didn't smile, not quite, but something sharp lit in her eyes. Correct. She opened her desk drawer, pulled out a notepad. We'll file a second motion, this time with supplemental fraud allegations, and we're adding criminal intent. She paused. And we'll request a freeze on the Carroll Family Trust, including any recent asset transfers tied to your name or inheritance. My throat tightened. They won't see it coming, will they? No, she said, because they thought you were dead. I stood up, steadied my breath, and slid the USB across the table. Sylvia took it without a word. Then she looked at me like I was something made of iron. You've done more than survive, Ms. Marin, she said. You've made history. And for the first time since this started, I believed her. I left Sylvia's office with my shoulders squared and my jaw set. The air outside felt different now, less like weather, more like clarity. I walked slowly through the city, past brick buildings and gas lamps flickering on as twilight crept in, and let my mind catch up to the truth. They had buried me. But I had climbed out of the grave, paper cuts and all, and now I carried the shovel. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I expected a call from Sylvia, maybe an update from the court clerk. But it wasn't that. It was a message. Blocked number. Just a voice note. I hit play. It was Rami again. If you're listening, I guess that means you really are alive, she said. Her voice was frayed now, stripped of the smugness she wore like a second skin. I didn't know, okay? I didn't know they'd actually go that far. I thought the paperwork was just legal junk. Dad said it was just to clean things up. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing. I know I signed things I shouldn't have, but I was scared and tired, and honestly, I thought you'd already given up. You left, Thana. You disappeared. Another pause. I know it doesn't change anything, but I never wanted you erased. I just wanted to win. And now, silence. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I do. The message ended. I stared at the sidewalk for a long time, at a single leaf spinning in the wind, at the fading orange hue over the courthouse dome. Then I saved the message, not for forgiveness, for the record. The next week, news of the probate ruling spread slowly, but steadily. First, a brief mention in the Charleston Courier, then an industry blog, then whispers in the family circles that once mocked me with clinking wine glasses and curated Christmas photos. I watched it unfold from a distance, until one morning I opened my phone to see a photo posted from my mother's account, her and Rami standing in front of the estate again. Caption, first in line, always have been. It was the same photo as before, same angle, same fake smiles. But the comments were different now. I smiled, because I had just posted mine. Same spot, same background. But instead of a pose, I stood alone, holding the real deed. No filter, no caption, just a date, the day of the court ruling. The timing was perfect. Right as the certified letters were delivered to their lawyer. Right as the court's freeze on the family trust took effect. Right as the story started unraveling publicly. Sylvia called me 2 days later. They're panicking, she said. Rami's lawyer filed a motion to withdraw. Your parents have hired a PR firm, and the court is moving forward with a fraud investigation into the death certificate. I nodded. Good. They may try to settle. I already knew what I would say. No. Sylvia was quiet for a beat. You sure? They didn't just try to steal my inheritance, I said. They tried to delete me. Let the court speak now. Then we let it burn. Weeks passed. The noise quieted. The interviews stopped. The headlines faded under the next scandal. But I didn't fade. I was building. I reopened the business folder Grandpa left buried beneath the safe, the one I hadn't touched in years. Inside were the documents for a holding company, a foundation. The Trillium Trust. It was registered under my name. One purpose, to protect legacy from the greedy hands of family wolves. I expanded it, grew it, invested in women like me, erased, ignored, rewritten. I gave them grants, advisors, legal assistance, and a name that couldn't be stolen. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. One spring morning, I visited Grandpa's grave for the first time since all of it ended. The cemetery was quiet. Nothing dramatic, just wind and sun and silence. I knelt down in front of his name carved in stone, placed a small folded letter beneath the flowers. Inside it, I'd written, "You were right. They burned it," and I rose from the ash. Thank you for not forgetting me. Love, Thana. The next day, I walked back into the house they once said I didn't belong to. I didn't knock. I had the deed. I moved through the halls quietly, barefoot on polished floors, and opened the curtains room by room. Light filled the spaces where shadows used to thrive. I sat on the front porch with a cup of chamomile tea and watched the sun rise over the marsh. I didn't think about what they'd done. I thought about what I'd reclaimed. Not just the money, or the land, or even my name, but the right to exist. On my terms. I wasn't silent anymore. I was heard. I was seen. And more than anything, I was home.